Hey, this is Erin from CreativeEye Chalk, and I am going to start assembling the pieces to make a box pillow that I'm going to put our harvest design on. And I really didn't want to have to do a zipper, but it's just not my favorite. But I thought it was important for this pillow because I want to take the cover off occasionally and wash it. I have 4 grandchildren and 2 dogs, and I'm sure it will be need to be laundered occasionally. So what I did to start, I'll show you first the pillow. Let me move my machine out of the way. The reason why I'm doing the pillow, box pillow, is I'm actually just going to cover over this rust colored pillow that I have here. And this one does not even have a zipper. It had a, now this one was purchased from a store a long time ago, but they closed it up just with some hand stitching. So, but like I said, I wanted a zipper. So a box pillow basically has a strip along the sides, so it makes a flat box, rather than just tapering down, you know, so you end up like that with most pillows where you have that lump. This is flatter than that. I had to start with 2 strips that were long enough to go around the whole pillow. So I measured what was already on the pillow and then allowed for a seam allowance. That was one of my strips. The other one, what I did was I cut wider than that, like another inch wider than the other one, because when you're doing a zipper, you always put a seam in. I shouldn't say always, depends on what kind of zipper you're going to do. And then you press it flat, and the zipper will end up going on top of this piece. So the zipper I'm going to use is a 24-inch polyester zipper. To be honest with you, I looked for an upholstery zipper and I couldn't find one, so I just figure I'm going to go ahead and use this one. I actually wanted longer than that because I thought I would go the whole length of the back and then wrap around to the sides just to make it easier to get the cushion in and out of. But they just didn't have what I was looking for. So what I'm going to use to hold the zipper in place is painter's tape. So using painter's tape, it's a shortcut some people use. Some people don't recommend it because you can gunk up your sewing machine, but if you just clean your needle with a little bit of alcohol after, you should be okay. So what I'm going to do is take the center of that zipper and put it right on top of my seam. So what I like to do when I'm sewing a zipper is I take the pole and pull it down part way, and that way I can do a straight, I can start out straight. A lot of people will start a zipper from the bottom and come up and then pull their pole down. I just try to do everything like one down, across, back up, so I start at the top. At least with this one I will. I'm a little more careful if it's a garment. It is nice if you have a zipper foot to use a zipper foot. I've done zippers without it, but it just doesn't look as nice. So if you have the right tool, go ahead and use it. Okay, so I'm going to start coming down, and I want to secure that in place. So I am right up against this zipper, but I reached the shank already, or the pull. So I'm going to pull that up. Let's see. I just pulled the pull. It was down below, and I went ahead and pulled it back up past where I already sewed. Now I'm going to put my presser foot back down and continue to sew. Okay, so now that my zipper is in, as you can see, it's an even stitch on both sides because I try to keep the pressure foot very close to the zipper. Now, what I'm going to take a minute to do is open up this seam. Which I'm going to show you. This seam's not that difficult to take out. I didn't use a basting stitch, but I used close to a basting stitch. If I had used a basting stitch, it would have been easier to take out. I don't recommend you just stick the seam ripper right in and just totally rip it out, because it's easy to catch your fabric. But at the same time, it's much easier to take out this way, being careful, than it is to take out a regular seam. Because if you've used a basting stitch. Okay, so what we're going to do is take the right side. So, of course, where the seam is, that you can see the two frayed edges, that's the back side, and then the nice pressed seam is the right side. And this drop cloth that we're using doesn't really have a right side and a wrong side, so this piece I can put on either direction. And oh, I don't even have any needles here. But fortunately, it's just a short seam that I'm doing right now. So this, I will actually reinforce. And this is just a personal preference. I'm going to take that seam, and I'm just finger pressing it. And I'm going to top stitch on that, just because I want it to be reinforced. One concern I do have about this fabric is, with it being a drop cloth, I'm afraid it will fray more than I want. So what I'll end up doing, I'm going to put in a little bit of top stitching here, and then coming back down, and I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done. I'm just staying very close to the seam. Okay, so that's a top stitch. So it holds down that seam flat, but it also, as pressure's put on it, instead of just pulling on that seam, it now has two reinforced sides. And another thing that does is wherever the seams are, it's going to be really easy for this to start fraying. Okay, so what I'm doing for the zigzag, I started, it was a very narrow zigzag, and I didn't think that that was going to help me as much. So I'm doing like a medium width zigzag, and same thing for my stitch length. Okay, we are to the pinning part where I'm going to pin that strip that I made all the way around. Now there's ways you can do corners. I'm just going to do a very simple corner. So I started pinning, gonna come over here, pinch it together to make a turn, and then continue pinning. The only thing you need to make sure of when you're doing this is that when you pinch it and move it, you're basing your information on like a 5/8 seam or whatever your seam is. So it might take you a little bit of trial and error. I eyeball it at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing this strip on there, and I'll be back. All right, I have finished the sewing on the pillow, but I thought I would mention a couple things that I forgot to mention. What I find most helpful when I'm sewing is to always know where the center of each side is, especially when I'm doing rounded corners and that kind of thing, because you're gathering up fabric and you always want to know where the true center is of your different sides, so it'll be easy to match up. Not only because of that, but when you're putting that strip in there, if you know where the center of your strip is on different portions and the center of your panel, it's just easier to match up so you don't end up with a big gap at the end. One of the nice things about having a zipper is you don't have any hand sewing in it, but when you're sewing all around the sides, go ahead and open up that zipper a little bit, just so you have a place to put your hand and flip it back around. I really did not like the way this was fraying, so I actually went around 2 times with the zigzag stitch, one close to the edge and then one closer to the seam. And I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go ahead and do a top stitch. I probably will. I'm not going to do that on camera, but I'm just going to come one more time, I think, with a stitch all around. It'll actually be twice around because I have to do that side and this side, just to strengthen it a little bit more, because I really don't want this to fray. So, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to clean up all these little extra pieces of thread that are coming out. Just shows you how much this drop cloth does fray. But I'm going to clean all that up so then when I come back, I can start inking. So anyway, I got the pillow done, and now I'm going to do the inking. So as you know, we take off the transfer and fuzz, but I don't have to for a couple reasons. One, I've already used this transfer a couple times, but the other thing is I'm putting it on fabric. And if you think about it, if you're putting it on fabric, which is where we fuzz things, we shouldn't have to fuzz it on fabric and then put it on fabric. So it just makes sense that we don't have to fuzz. I am just seeing if I'm close. It's a little bit more than 3.5 over there. Right at 3.5 on this side. So I'm just going to adjust that a little bit so it's a little bit more even. Not that anyone would ever notice that. But one of the things that I was thinking about, this camper that we got has cushions in it that the mother, wow, I'm really off on this, that the mother of my friend hand sewed, well, not hand sewed, she handmade them, or made them herself, but she, of course, on a sewing machine, but she did a little quilt design, patchwork quilt design for the cushions. And when I saw that, it just made me happy. I just thought how much love and care she put into that, and then all the memories that her and her family had in that camper, and how similar it was to what I'm doing here on the back porch. Just trying to create a place of beauty to just create some memories for us as well. Okay, so I decided I'm going to do the dark blue on these narrow letters because I really want them to stand out. When they're thinner like that, you know, they're harder to read. And then I'm going to do a blend of blue for my bigger letters, because, you know, I always have to blend colors. And then the flourishes, I'm probably going to do in gold, the gold shimmer, because I'm going to put some of the shimmer paste on the tools that I'm going to be doing down here. So I just, of course, want everything to tie together. And I'm going to be doing these small words first. As you know, I love our inks for a couple reasons. One is I like the consistency better than the paste. I just think they're easier to work with. And I'm not limited to 2 minutes before it dries. You have a little bit longer time. So I just find them easier to work with. But I don't usually use inks on my sign because it takes a lot longer to dry. And I don't heat set my signs. If I want them to be permanent, I might seal them. But especially if I'm layering, it would just add so much time to my projects if I use the ink rather than the chalk paste. So, and most of the time, you know, the chalk paste is just the better option anyway because it's washable. So anytime I'm doing something and I'm afraid I might, I'm going to do these letters too, that I might make a mistake or may need to wash something off, then the chalk paste is definitely your better bet because that's so easy to fix. Now I did consider doing this pillow in just one color. I love like this canvas back, drop cloth would look really nice with just black as the design on there. But because my window treatments I did with so much color, I didn't really think I could do that. Okay, so this one, I'm going to mix the blue and the tide, And I think I'm even going to put some of the Couture teal in there. And I'm not going to mix it all the way. I'm going to do a little bit of a blend using my inks again. Excuse me while I yell for a minute. Come in! All right. Hopefully she heard that. Excuse me one more time. Come in! Okay. All right, so I have this mixture of teal, Tide, and the Midnight Blue. And as you can see, I haven't mixed it all the way. I just kind of have them together. And that's one of my favorite ways of using both the ink and the paste. Is that way I get some streaks in there. It's not one solid color. I end up with little light spots, dark spots. And I just like the way that looks. I think it adds a lot of texture to the image or the design that you're making. Everyone has their own little favorite techniques, and that just happens to be mine. All right. I may have just gone over into the flourish part, but it's okay. All right. And I'll probably do those flourishes with my multi-tool, so I make sure I don't come into the letters. I don't think the person at the door heard me say come in, so I may have to get up in a minute. But let me at least get this blue done. I don't even know where that P ends and where that flourish starts, so that'll be interesting. All right, we're getting closer. But this year has been a wonderful year for me seeing the truth that this particular transfer is talking about, of just concentrate on the seeds you plant and don't worry about the harvest. Hello.
Hello.
I'm doing a live.
I know.
I was gonna wait for you, but you can just... Beth is here with me. Beth does beautiful, beautiful chalk art. So she's here with me at the moment. But
Hello.
Anyway, I'll show her to you in a moment. But the thing that I love about this saying is I just think of how we had to be very consistent in parenting, and you often wondered if what you were saying was getting through, and you weren't always seeing the results of your parenting, and were you being too harsh, were you being too soft? But the goal was just remember what your end, I should say, just remember what your end goal was, and let that be your guide of what you were trying to teach. And so this year has just been a year where we're seeing so much growth and good decisions from our children, and growing family with grandchildren and marriages, and anyway, it's just been a blessing that now we're starting to see some of that harvest. You know, some of it we're just not ever going to see, and you can't rush the harvest. Although, I'd love to rush the harvest, as most moms would probably love to rush the harvest, but, you know, your kids do hear you, and you just have to keep training them in the way that you think is the right way. So anyway, I definitely wanted to use this design here on the back porch. I often have my devotions back here, and it's just a good reminder of the importance of just moving forward, doing the right thing every day. Want to add anything to that, Miss Beth?
I think your curtains are beautiful, and your flower bed outside is extraordinary. Because last time I was here, you didn't have that.
Beth,
and you had talked about it on one of your lives. And you have been working very hard.
I have been.
And I love it.
Thank you. Beth is commenting on my flower bed up front, which a year and a half ago I got in a car accident and really could not do very much outside at all. It really bothered me to bend over or do any kind of work like that, weeding and planting.
I mean, it was pretty outside, but you had talked about that on one of your lives, how hard you've been working, and you've like redone things.
Well, Beth is being very gracious right now, saying it was beautiful outside. It was not beautiful. It was a mess. It was just a whole bunch of weeds. I had a herb garden, which I couldn't even tell what was a weed and what was a plant. I mean, an herb. So everything except for sage and mint came out of that, and we replanted that. But anyway,
and this that box that you did, with garden on it.
I love the box. I'm actually going to do
the live video. Did nothing for it. That is beautiful.
So, well, thank you.
In person, it is just amazing.
Well, good. I'm going to do the one.
I'm going to take it home when I leave and walk out with it.
I'm doing the one behind me today too, as well.
That big brown one?
Yeah. So I am trying to actually get things done today. That's my goal before I start on this camper that I have out there.
Now, is this a seat cushion or a pillow? Or
this pillow?
This is huge.
Yes, this pillow is going over that rust color pillow. One thing I will not be showing you on this live is me wrestling with that pillow to get it inside this pillow cover I just made. I did put it in once today already and broke a serious sweat, even though it's not that hot out. But I wanted to make it snug enough where it didn't look baggy, but at the same time I couldn't find a zipper long enough when I was looking for the zipper. I would have liked another 4 inches on my zipper. So it'll take me a little bit. But when I post this video, well, I don't know how to do that, honestly. What I'll do is actually post a picture of the design completely done. Okay, did I miss any spots on that one? Do you see any?
Looks good to me.
Well, I see a little dab right there. Okay.
Now, is this the 2-minute rule on these?
No, because this is the ink.
Oh, okay.
All right. If you can hold that down. The bottom of that, well, I'm going to hand paint the bottom of that don't. I see. So what I'm going to do with these is a little bit of brown. I'm not going to do them the way I did my curtains with all the dimension. But I am going to do a little bit of mixture of colors. So, okay, so I put on a little bit of brown, a little bit of gold, and then I'll do a little bit of the, not pumpkin, what is it called? Papaya. Papaya. It's always the one I forget. And then I'm just going to blend them a little bit. I think I talked about blending on fabric before. That you just have to be careful because your fabric is porous. So it's easy to bleed. But I haven't really found that with this. But just, I would say test an area if you're going to do that. Okay. So, okay, and then I'm just going to do a quick, simple silver up top. I'm putting this clean squeegee right here so that transfer doesn't hit the other one. But the safer way would be to do one of these tools at a time, and if they're going to touch, to go ahead and heat set them in between. But I'm just on a mission for getting stuff done today. So I'm taking a couple shortcuts. And if you're new to chalk art, I would say don't always follow my example. But I'm happy, you know, I'm happy to share with you the shortcuts, happy to share with you the right way to do it. So, okay, so we just have our little silver. Well, now I can take that one right off. Okay. Putting that in a water bath so the ink doesn't dry on the transfer, and then I'll just spend a minute cleaning them off when this is all done. So rather than use a blow dryer to dry this a little bit before I heat set it with my Easy Press, I'm actually going to just go ahead and let this air dry, and then this evening hit it with my Easy Press. But I will post the picture later today and show you what it looks like. But thank you for being with me. Please join me in my Facebook community group, CreativeEye Chalk Community. Thank you for joining me. See you there.